killer paradox begins in the home of Lee Tang, a seemingly ordinary college student, 6 months out of military service. His family is busy preparing for his sister Young's upcoming wedding, but they can't help but notice that Tang has been idle since his return. In response, Tang casually mentions his plan to go on a working holiday in Canada, though it seems more like an excuse to avoid his family's questions. At school, Tang meets up with his friends, Kyungwon and Mi-young, and admits he's been craving some excitement. Life has felt too dull since high school, and he's searching for something spectacular. Back at his messy apartment, Tang daydreams about Canada, watching videos of its landscapes, and even unboxing a framed photo of the Rocky Mountains. However, his attempt to hang the picture is unsuccessful, as he struggles to drive a nail into the wall. Later, Tang heads to his part-time job at a convenience store. The night seems routine until 2 customers arrive. One is obnoxious, ordering cigarettes and attempting to make food requests like it's a restaurant, while the other is polite, buying the food and dragging his friend away. As the night ends, Tang's boss arrives to close up the store. Before leaving, Tang asks to borrow a hammer to hang his picture, but his boss is too distracted to hear. Tang takes the hammer anyway. On his walk home, Tang stumbles upon the same drunk man from earlier, now passed out on the street. Spotting his friend nearby, Tang tries to inform him, but instead of concern, the man turns violent, attacking Tang. A flashback suddenly reveals a darker part of Tang's past. He and Kyungwon were bullied in high school, and this moment of conflict triggers something deep within him. In a sudden act of desperation, Tang grabs the hammer from his bag and strikes the man. The blow is fatal. As the man falls, Tang is left in shock. A blind woman walks past with her dog, unaware of the deadly scene unfolding right in front of her. Panicking, Tang rushes home, frantically scrubbing off the blood in the shower. He's haunted by the image of the man he killed, who now seems to appear in his mind, speaking about the tragic state of his life. Soon after, Kyungwon shows up at Tang's place. As they talk, Tang brings up their old high school bullies. To his surprise, Kyungwon reveals they're doing quite well in life. Tang realizes he left the hammer at the crime scene. This hammer is the only link connecting him to the murder. Meanwhile, Detective Jan Nan-gam and his colleague Yong-jae investigate the bodies, the drunk man and his friend, Kim Yong-jin. Meanwhile, Tang is unexpectedly called into work at the convenience store, as the girl on shift has called in sick. Detective Nan-gam visits the store, inquiring about security cameras. He encounters trouble with 2 young boys who are subsequently taken to the station for questioning. At the station, they receive a warning. As the detectives review the security footage, they are puzzled by how the bodies ended up in different locations. Nan-gam spots the footage of the drunk man interacting with Tang. However, a fly on the camera lens obscured the crucial moment when Tang took the hammer, leaving a gap in the footage. Nan-gam decides to interrogate him. Just as Tang is about to speak, Yong-jae interrupts, revealing that a witness saw the men fighting. Based on the evidence and test results, the detectives conclude that the 2 men killed each other. The drunk man's wife provides her testimony, revealing that her husband often brought Mi-young-jin, his colleague, over. The 2 had an affair, and she had even planned to marry him. Despite this, Nan-gam is skeptical about Mi-young-jin's identity, finding no records on him, and feels a sense of familiarity. Later, Nan-gam returns to the convenience store to buy chewing gum and warns Tang about the trauma he might be experiencing. Kyungwon arrives, saying he and Mi-young were questioned by a detective about Tang. They decide to go out for drinks. The next day, it's revealed that Kim Myung-jin was using a fake identity. His real name was Yeo Bil, a suspect in a 2009 serial murder case. The police confirm this through DNA analysis. Tang hears the news and seems visibly relieved. The scene shifts to the blind woman at home, playing with her dog. On her table, the hammer used in the crime is ominously displayed. Tang visits his parents' house, where his mother insists he come to church with her. Meanwhile, Detective Nan-gam stops by a flower shop but finds the shopkeeper preoccupied with a phone call. He then heads to a store to buy a juice gift box, but discovers it's missing 2 bottles and ends up discarding it. These efforts are meant for his father, a former police officer now bedridden. His mother is disappointed he didn't bring flowers. At the church, his mother frets over his weight loss and missing classes, but is interrupted by a friend. They all head to church, where his mother reassures him that he should go abroad if he wants. She hands him a lottery ticket and insists she and his father won't be a burden. Back at the police station, tensions rise as the team faces criticism for not arresting Yeo Bill before his death. The captain pulls Nangam aside, urging him to stop obsessing over a criminal who was once a cop himself. Tang buys a new phone and returns to the convenience store. During his shift, the blind woman from before appears, demanding 2 million won from him. She reveals she's not completely blind and knows Tang is the killer, hinting that she has the hammer. At university, Kyungwon and Mi-young discuss how Tang has been asking both of them for money. Tang has tried selling his new phone without success. Desperate, he asks the store owner for an advance on his salary. The owner, having had previous issues with advances, refuses. However, Tang later receives a text from his boss indicating that he's been paid. Despite this, it's still not enough, so Tang takes the house savings account details from his parents and liquidates the entire amount. Kyungwon and Mi-young keep trying to reach Tang, but he's unresponsive. At the store, Tang, holding a sling bag filled with cash, learns from the owner that the blind woman has been seen around. He finds a cigarette box with a time and address left by the woman. At the police station, the captain reprimands Nangam for pursuing a criminal as a personal vendetta. Nangam insists he's only following his professional duty. The next day, Tang arrives at the blind woman's house, where she casually offers him coffee and chat. Tang, silent and anxious, pulls out the cash, only to be shocked when she reveals the payment she wanted was actually 2 million won per month. She shows him the hammer and says she wouldn't risk becoming an accomplice for that amount. Tang, frustrated, leaves the money behind, grabs the hammer, and exits. The woman makes a final comment, revealing she knows about Tang's family. She warns him that even without the hammer, the police could easily catch him. Tang lunges at the blind woman with the hammer. Blood splatters as she falls dead. Panicking, Tang grabs his belongings and flees, leaving a bloody handprint on her front door. Later, milk packages pile up outside the woman's house. The delivery man notices the build-up and checks on her. In the morning, detectives Nangam and Yong-jae arrive at the scene. The body was severely mutilated, and her dog had begun to eat her remains. The commotion in the garden reveals a skull buried in the soil. During the police briefing, it's revealed that 2 skeletons were discovered in the woman's garden. At home, Tang is tormented by hallucinations of Yeok and reflects on how easy it has been to kill. He has been isolated for 4 days, barely eating, and is puzzled by the lack of police action against him. The dog's licking of everything Tang touched has prevented the police from finding his fingerprints or DNA. They debate whether the dog should be put down. Tang, distraught and on the verge of suicide, fails in his attempt. Kyunghwan arrives, and they have a heated argument. Tang admits to stealing his tablet, which Kyunghwan reveals he always knew about Tang's actions. At the police station, a detective is convinced that someone else was at the house on the day of the murder, but there's no evidence to support this theory. Later, the decision is made to euthanize the dog, and he is tasked with overseeing this. Tang's absence from work leads his boss to file a police complaint against him. The 2 young boys from earlier appear again, seeing the detective walking with the dog. They approach him, and one of them stabs the detective with a broken bottle. Tang sees news about Yeok, which claims she murdered her own parents. The boys, still wandering the streets, realize they've lost their wallets and decide to harass Tang. As they approach him, Tang feels a familiar chill, reminiscent of his previous murders. The next scene shows 2 bodies abandoned in a dump. The following morning, the detective arrives at the scene. Tang wakes up at home, shocked to find himself covered in blood. Beside him are a bloody brick and a small note. Tang recalls that someone must have carried him home, but he doesn't know who. The note advises him to seek help if needed and provides a link to a Telegram group named Only for Heroes. A flashback reveals Yeok hanging out with friends and lighting a cigarette. Suddenly, there's a gas leak and it results in an explosion. The incident leaves her with severe burns and a lost eye. Later, we see Yewook using a pipe to funnel gas into her parents' bedroom. Her mother wakes up, disrupting her plans, and Yewook grabs a knife. Yewook had signed her parents up for 8 life insurance policies. A social media post condemns Yewook, stating that her death can't erase her past crimes. Nangam reads this post and meets with the author, Yewook's cousin. The cousin recounts how Yewook once poured boiling water on her face at school for no apparent reason, indicating Yewook's cruelty. At the police station, the detective who was stabbed receives congratulations for returning to work. He describes the stabbing incident and mentions his desire to resign. Nangam and Yongjae attend one of the boys' funerals. Nangam questions the boy's mother about the attacks on the detective, but she reacts with anger, slapping him. Yongjae questions if Nangam was too harsh. On their way back, Nangam recounts a past case involving a girl named Kang Yeon-so, who committed suicide after being raped by 2 boys. At her funeral, the rapist's mother made a scene, claiming it was consensual. Nangam reveals that the rapists were the boys who died. They continued their criminal activities, which is why Nangam had targeted them previously. Nangam visits the convenience store owner and learns that Yewook used to stand on the street near the store around 10 o'clock. The owner expresses anger over Tang's theft and mentions that Tang had seen Yewook as well. At home, Tang connects with a user from the Only for Heroes group. When the user reveals that they know Tang's name, he panics and blocks them. Shortly after, a postman delivers a court attendance notice to Tang for stealing money from his boss. Nangam tries to persuade the detective not to quit his job, but he remains resolute. Nangam then meets the detective handling Tang's financial fraud case. Yongjae visits Yeon-seo's house, where her father, Sang-muk, confesses to killing the boys who raped her. Meanwhile, Tang decides to turn himself in. He contacts the detective in charge of his financial fraud case and arranges to meet at 9 p.m. Tang sets aside some money for his mother and the convenience store, gathers all evidence of his murders into a bag, and leaves his house. Sang-muk provides a statement, admitting to killing the boys with a brick, but claiming he doesn't remember what he did with it afterward. Nangam isn't convinced by Sang-muk's story. He enters the interrogation room and points out inconsistencies. Sang-muk doesn't smoke, yet the victims had cigarette burns, and Sang-muk is left-handed while the killer used his right hand. Despite his supervisor's frustration, Nangam convinces him of the need to continue the investigation. He then receives a message from another detective about Tang. Yongjae apologizes for his rash actions and mentions informing the boy's mother about a suspect, asking if this could be problematic. A flashback reveals Sang-muk receiving a knife in a package at his house. He had intended to kill the boys, messaging with the same person who contacted Tang on Only for Heroes. The contact instructs him to follow through with their plans. Currently, Sang-muk is struck by a car driven by the high schooler's mother right outside the police station. Meanwhile, 2 men on a bike steal Tang's bag and flee. Finding little cash inside, they discard it along with evidence of Tang's murders. Tang is in an ambulance, being taken to the hospital after injuring his arm during a fall. Sang-muk is also hospitalized. Nangam questions him, probing why he is trying to frame himself and protect the real killer. Sang-muk receives another message from Only for Heroes. He sees Tang leaving the hospital with a bandaged arm and tries to follow him, but his wheelchair tips over. Tang hears the commotion and returns. Sang-muk tells him to leave because the police are nearby. Tang realizes Sang-muk knows who he is and tries to gather more information, but Sang-muk insists they will connect on Telegram. Tang hurriedly leaves, with Nangam noticing and pursuing him. Sang-muk, reflecting on videos of his daughter, takes a handful of sleeping pills. A flashback reveals Sang-muk witnessing Tang attacking the 2 boys and smashing their heads with a brick before seemingly passing out. As Nangam follows Tang, he is summoned back to the hospital due to Sang-muk's condition. Tang opens his telegram, only to find that the account has been deleted. He recalls that 2 people, not just one, carried him home. Later, Tang's sister and mother visit his apartment but find it cleared out. A flashback shows Sang-muk drinking with someone, discussing how Yeon-so didn't die immediately and suffered for hours in the hospital before passing away. Sangmuk expresses his desire to kill the boys responsible. The man across from him, wearing a Batman hoodie, tells him he can help with that. At a team dinner, a prosecutor hands out his credit card to his colleagues and heads home, calling for a driver. He assumes the man waiting by his car, dressed in a hoodie with "Only for Heroes" printed on it, is the driver. Midway through the ride, he wakes up to a call from the real driver and realizes he's going the wrong way. As lights flash in the car, we see a body floating down a river. Meanwhile, Young visits the convenience store owner and he withdraws his complaint against Tang because his family has reimbursed him for the money owed. The detective officially retires from the police force. A special investigations unit is formed to handle the murder cases, but after 4 months, they have no progress. Nangam criticizes the unit, claiming their efforts are just for show. The unit leader overhears and argues with him, maintaining that the murders are not the work of a single person, contrary to Nangam's belief. Elsewhere, in a room adorned with superhero merchandise, Robin, a young profiler, discusses a murder case online. Nangam visits him and presents details of several cases. Robin suggests that a serial killer might be responsible. Nangam has his colleague listen in on their conversation. When Robin inadvertently reveals he hacked into the prosecutor's network, Nangam instructs his colleague to bring Robin to the station. At the station, Nangam persuades his captain to allow him to handle Robin. Although they lack concrete evidence, they release Robin, which seems to be part of Nangam's strategy. While driving Robin home, Nangam discusses the lack of leads and asks Robin to report any findings. At a convenience store, Nangam spots Yeowook's dog and follows it to Yeowook's house. At Robin's house, Tang arrives with a food delivery. Robin advises him to be cautious. Outside, Nangam's colleague questions Tang about which apartment he's delivering to. Nearby, Nangam informs Yongjae that Robin previously worked for the murderer he's been pursuing. The colleague returns to Nangam, revealing that the delivery guy claimed not to have seen Robin's face. Since Nangam was present when Robin received the delivery, he knows this is a lie. He orders the other officers to track down the delivery man immediately. Yongjae and another officer chase after Lee Tang, while Nangam bursts into Robin's apartment. He demands to know if Robin has been selecting victims for Tang, and pressures him to reveal Tang's location. Yongjae brings in the delivery man, but it turns out to be the wrong person. The captain calls Nangam, furious about the situation. It is revealed that Robin has set up cameras in his apartment, and videos of Nangam beating him are being broadcasted all over the internet. The captain is infuriated and more police officers arrive at Robin's apartment. In a flashback set about 4 months ago, Tang is seen packing his bags. He leaves a letter for his family, saying he's going to Canada and promises to return as a better person. However, he ends up sleeping at a railway station. He spends his time traveling by train until Robin approaches him, introducing himself as the person behind Only for Heroes. Robin takes Tang to his home and suggests they team up. He reveals that he knows all about the murders Tang has committed and is aware of Tang's unique ability, that the people he kills deserve to die and all evidence of his crimes disappears. Robin offers Tang money and proposes they serve justice together. The next morning, Robin and Tang discuss his powers. Robin mentions that Tang has met one of his previous partners and that the other is someone he prefers not to encounter again. Robin instructs Tang to look behind a shelf, where Tang discovers a hidden room filled with weapons, files, and a jacket labeled Only for Heroes. Tang puts on the jacket and walks down the street, coincidentally bumping into the prosecutor. Feeling the urge to kill, Tang poses as his driver. Later, he has the prosecutor bound and questions him about his crimes. Robin arrives, hacks into the prosecutor's phone, and finds videos that reveal he sexually assaulted women. With this evidence, Tang kills him without remorse. Both men watch as his body floats away. Over time, Tang grows more confident in his ability to eliminate bad people and builds his physical strength to handle his targets more effectively. Presently, Nangam and his team face severe reprimand. Both Nangam and his captain are dismissed from their positions. At the Chinese restaurant where Tang works, a cop named Song Chon inquires about Tang. Kyunga, a young woman whose private videos were leaked, is dealing with the fallout of the scandal that forced her to relocate. Meanwhile, Robin provides Tang with a new identity and has him relocated to Busan. Tang's most recent victim was a professor who had abused a student and murdered her when she became pregnant. Robin narrates that Tang's actions are the epitome of pure good. Tang is now working in the fish section of a supermarket. At work, Tang's colleagues discuss Kyung-ah, who has been assigned to the cash counter. She appears particularly wary of men. After a heated argument with a woman seeking a refund, Kyung-ah witnesses Tang confronting the woman outside, revealing her as a thief. Kyung-ah later shares a smoke with Tang, expressing that they are both running from their pasts. Kyung-ah then meets her mother at the train station. She has had plastic surgery to avoid being recognized, and her mother urges her to visit home more often. The detective visits Nangam and is surprised to see Yeok's dog. Yong-jae expresses his frustration, reproaching Nangam for not keeping him updated about the Robin case. Yong-jae reveals that while working on another case, he saw footage of Tang in Busan. They discuss the murders in Busan, and Nangam suggests they investigate Tang's family. They propose that Tang's family report him as missing, but Yong sees through their plan and insists on the truth. They admit the truth, but Tang's family struggles to believe that he could be a murderer. At dinner with her mother, Kyung-ah reacts angrily to a man staring at her. It turns out he recognizes her from elementary school under a different name. They chat, and he mentions that he had written about her in his childhood journal, which he recently found. When he asks for her phone number, she declines politely. Yong and Tang's mother file a missing person report at the police station, which allows Nangam and Yong-jae to officially investigate Tang in Busan. Busan detectives are skeptical that Tang is involved in the professor's murder. Nangam requests information on other unsolved deaths. Kyung-ah receives a call from her former schoolmate, Sang-min, who reveals that his private videos were also leaked and he was extorted. They meet, and Sang-min admits he got her number from a cop, as he felt lost and didn't know where else to turn. Sang-min reveals he recently broke up with his girlfriend. Desperate for a place to stay, he takes up Kyung-ah's offer. However, when he is alone in the washroom, he smiles to himself, revealing his true intentions. That night, Kyung-ah, feeling a sense of safety with Sang-min, offers to share her bed with him. In reality, Sang-min is lying. He is still on good terms with his girlfriend. While near the supermarket, Tang overhears Sang-min talking to his girlfriend on the phone. Kyung-ah continues to grow closer to Sang-min, oblivious to his real motives. As Tang cleans the bathroom, he hallucinates seeing himself holding a knife instead of a water spray, and his reflection suddenly attacks him. At home, Kyung-ah, feeling secure in Sang-min's arms, suggests moving back to Seoul. However, she quickly discovers a wedding invitation video on Sang-min's phone, revealing his true interest in her. Furious, Kyung-ah confronts Sang-min, who, in a fit of rage, pushes her down and chokes her until she dies. The scene transitions to the aftermath of Kyung-ah's murder. Nangam sees the news about a massive fire at Kyung-ah's building. In a shop, some people discuss how Kyung-ah didn't die from the fire, but was murdered. Song-chon, who is in the shop, finds the news amusing. Nangam attempts to push for a faster investigation into Kyung-ah's murder, but the Busan detectives are reluctant. Meanwhile, Tang, learning of Kyung-ah's death, appears genuinely shocked. He notices Song-chon in the market following him and tries to escape, only to find Nangam entering through the front door. Tang rushes to the back of the store where Song-chon is waiting. Feeling an unsettling tingle in his neck, Tang realizes that Chon is a dangerous individual. By the time Nangam reaches the back, both Tang and Chon have disappeared. Nangam then asks the store employees for Tang's address. Returning home, Sang-min finds Song-chon waiting by his front door. Chon questions him as if he were a regular cop, but when Sang-min admits to killing Kyung-ah, Chon reveals his true nature. He pulls out tape and other equipment from his bag, ready to deal with Sang-min. Tang, on the run, calls Robin and tells him something feels different this time. Robin advises him to lay low and turn off his phone. Sang-min writes a confession about Kyung-ah's murder. Chon kills him and cleans up the apartment. Nangam and a Busan detective head to Tang's house, while Yongjae and another cop go to Sangmin's. They witness Chon leaving. Nangam opens the door to Tang's house, and it is filled with smoke. At the same time, there's an explosion at Sangmin, injuring Yongjae, who is standing right at the front door. In a flashback from a while ago, as Tang approaches an elevator, he feels a sudden prickle in his neck upon noticing a man inside. He decides to walk away, causing the man to feel slighted. In retaliation, the man breaks into Tang's apartment, causing chaos with a fire extinguisher. Presently, he is in police custody, being interrogated by Busan detectives. Song Chon is revealed removing a glove to show his completely black fingertips. He applies an ointment while talking to his cat about ridding the world of bad people. Yongjae, currently in the hospital, calls Nangam to vent his frustration, mentioning that he saw Chon outside Sangmin's apartment. Nangam advises Yongjae to rest and focus on his health. Meanwhile, he is at the hospital where his father is critically ill. His mother scolds him for taking calls, and a doctor informs them they must decide whether to put his father on life-sustaining support. Tang notices a man groping a girl on a train. Although he witnesses the incident, he does nothing and later heads to a cybercafe, indulging in games to escape his past responsibilities. Robin returns home to find Song Chon there, revealing that Chon was his former associate. Chon, wanting to meet Tang, is told by Robin that Tang has gone off the grid. Chon asks Robin to arrange a meeting when Tang resurfaces. He also takes a copy of Crime and Punishment from Robin's safe, which seems significant. As Chon leaves, Robin attempts to attack him, but fails. At the cybercafe, Tang's neck prickles again when another man sits next to him. He decides against acting and leaves. Yongjae, ignoring Nangam's advice, visits Robin's house and encounters Chon. They fight, and Chon throws Yongjae out of a window. Robin arrives at the police station, insisting he will only speak to Nangam. He accuses Chon of being behind the gas explosion in Busan. Meanwhile, Chon is stuck in traffic and observes a young couple being rude to a taxi driver. Robin agrees to disclose everything to Nangam if he helps deal with Chon. Nangam refuses to cooperate. On a rooftop, Chon confronts the young couple, with the man seemingly dead and the woman pleading for her life. Tang wakes from a nightmare about Chon and sees news about a fugitive named Lee, who is the same man he saw at the cybercafe. On the rooftop, Chon leaves behind a confession note written in blood. Nangam is visited by the new police captain, who knows he has the most information about Song Chon. The captain presents documents about Robin and details of a recent case involving a young couple Chon killed. The girl was the granddaughter of the chairman of Buyon Construction, a major company. The captain offers Nangam a promotion if he solves the case and instructs him to return to work the next day. Meanwhile, Robin takes the initiative to approach Buyon Construction to assist them in capturing Chon. Robin receives a call from Tang, who wants more information about Chon. Robin reveals that while he made a similar offer to Chon as he did to Tang, he found Chon to be particularly sadistic and different. Tang requests a meeting with Chon. Chon, who is reviewing his collection of confession notes, receives a message about Tang wanting to meet him. Chon sets up a video call with Tang, directing him to a coffee shop. At the same time, Robin and the men from Buyon Construction are waiting at another location, trying to track Chon. Robin notices Tang's location is changing, so they decide to follow him. After reaching the location, the men tie Robin up. At the rundown cafe, Tang meets Chon, who is intrigued by Tang's abilities. Tang asks for his book back, but Chon says he isn't finished with it yet and warns him not to trust Robin too much. Chon proposes that Tang join him to select the right people to kill. Chon puts a hand on Tang's shoulder, but Tang, feeling a shift, attacks with a knife. Chon easily stops him and declares that Tang is not a hero, but merely a murderer. As Buyon Construction's men arrive and confront Chon, Tang seizes the opportunity to escape. He frees Robin, admitting that he is scared. Despite the odds, Chon fights off all the attackers and instructs the last man standing to report to his boss that they lost Chon. In a flashback, Yongjae questions Nangam about his motivation to become a cop. Nangam reveals that his father, who was a cop, never treated him well. He became a cop to avoid being looked down upon and to gain his father's approval. Currently, Nangam takes the dog to a shelter for an aggression test which will determine if the dog will be euthanized. Later, Nangam, the new police captain, and other officers review security footage from the rundown cafe. They identify Tang, Robin, and the Boyeon construction men, as well as Chon. The cops track the area where Chon was last seen and realize that the construction company's thugs were also searching for him. Chon, meanwhile, watches them from a nearby rooftop. The cops discover Chon's collection of confession notes in the room he was staying in. Meanwhile, Tang is picked up by Robin. They decide to head south, and Tang visits his parents' home. His mother has been frequenting church services, praying for him. Chon then visits the Boyeon construction manager, demanding to know the whereabouts of the chairman. Nangam correctly deduces that Chon is targeting the chairman and persuades his colleagues to go to the chairman's location immediately. However, Chon has already arrived. He ties up the chairman and manipulates a girl into making a phone call to keep the security away for an hour. Chon gives the girl a drink that causes her to pass out. Chon's narration reveals the chairman's numerous faults, including his corrupt connections and the deaths caused by his constructions. Nangam arrives just as Chon is about to make the chairman write a letter. Chon inserts a sharp screw into the chairman's neck while Nangam points his gun at him. Chon realizes that Nangam is the child of his former colleague and admits that he is responsible for his father's coma. He taunts Nangam, who is unable to shoot. Chon removes the screw, and the cops rush to save the chairman. Other officers intervene, arrest Chon, and prevent Nangam from shooting him. After the arrest, the captain informs Nangam that the case will receive significant attention and arranges for Nangam's father to be transferred to a police hospital. Robin recounts his tragic past to Tang. A robber broke into his house and killed his parents, leading Robin to seek power to serve justice, recognizing his own weakness. He began looking for individuals like Tang who could provide the strength he lacked. Meanwhile, Chon is being transported to the police station, but causes chaos when he throws a fit about his handcuffs being too tight. When one of the cops loosens them, Chon seizes the opportunity, attacks, and manages to escape after the car overturns. As Chon escapes, the chairman's funeral is held, and an assemblyman pressures the captain to make an arrest promptly. Tang and Robin are eating when they learn of Chon's escape. To their shock, the news reports that Tang and Robin are accomplices, causing outrage among Tang's friends and family. Frustrated by the situation, Robin proposes escaping the country as stowaways on a ship. They meet one of Robin's contacts to arrange their escape. Chon, meanwhile, is hiding and tending to a serious wound on his hand. At home, Nangam receives distressing news about his father. His mother signed a document allowing the hospital not to resuscitate his father. The decision now rests with Nangam, who instructs the nurse to continue treatment and keep his father alive. Chon misleads the police by placing his phone inside a random truck and then contacts Robin using the phone of Robin's dentist. He suggests meeting up as they are all accomplices. Robin, however, does not inform Tang about Chon's call. Instead, he instructs Tang to travel to a different location, claiming they should separate for safety. While Robin looks for bus routes, Tang downloads a location tracker on his phone. Tang reaches the docks, receives a new passport from his contact, and finds a letter from Robin in his bag. Robin approaches Nangam, offering to help locate Chon. Nangam is hesitant to work with Robin. Meanwhile, Nangam's mother sees Chon in the ward. Chon gives her a handful of pills, causing her to pass out. Nangam then receives a shocking call. Tang reads Robin's letter, which contains an apology and encouragement to trust his instincts. Robin tells Tang to go on his own and trust in his power, but Tang decides to return and help him. Nangam arrives at the hospital to find his father's body. His mother is unharmed, and Nangam quickly leaves the hospital, getting into his car where Robin is waiting. Robin tries to convince Nangam that Tang is special and is killed for just reasons. Robin claims that Nangam is also pursuing justice by going after Chon. Meanwhile, Tang steals a car and follows Robin's live location. Upon reaching the meetup spot, Tang finds that Chon is already there. Chon realizes Nangam is hiding nearby. As Nangam points a gun at Chon, Tang arrives, leading to an intense shootout. During the chaos, Robin is shot, and despite Tang's efforts, he cannot save him. Tang questions Chon's motives, and Chon explains that the world needs people like them who deliver justice. When Nangam intervenes, Chon turns his attention to him. A flashback reveals Chon's history. He had tried to impress Detective Jang, Nangam's father, but failed. Chon discovered Jang's corruption, dealing confiscated drugs, and confronted him. Chon was beaten and insulted by Jang, who accused him of being the son of murderers. Their confrontation escalated into a fight where Chon severely injured Jang. Back in the present, Nangam listens to Chon's story, his demeanor shifting as he learns more about his father's past. Tang's neck prickles, sensing the tension. Nangam insists on killing Chon himself. As Chon pulls out a knife and attacks Tang, Nangam shoots Chon dead. Later, Nangam manages to save the dog from being put down. His father's funeral takes place, and Nangam visits Yongjae in the hospital, who is recovering. At the police station, Chon and Robin are officially blamed for all the murders. A flashback reveals Robin's earlier conversation with Nangam, where he confessed he would take the fall for the crimes. Nangam then speaks with the profiler who had been involved earlier. She speculates that Robin's actions were shaped by the emotional abuse he endured after his parents' death, and inquires about Tang's role in the case. A flashback takes us to the scene of Chon and Robin's deaths. Nangam asks Tang why he returned. Tang explains that he came back to finish what he started and asks Nangam to kill him, wanting to stop running away. Nangam pulls the trigger, but it's a blank. He tells Tang to do whatever he wishes and leaves. Moments later, an electrical spark ignites a fire. Tang tries to rescue Robin but fails. With one last look at his friend, he escapes. Back at home, Tang's mother discovers that someone has shoveled the snow in front of their house. Her husband claims he didn't do it, leading her to search for the mysterious helper. However, Tang is no longer there. Tang seems to have relocated to another country, living a modest life and working hard. However, he is eventually apprehended as an illegal immigrant. To his surprise, his criminal record is clean, which perplexes him. A flashback reveals the profiler questioning Nangam about Tang's involvement. Although Nangam's response is not shown, it is clear that Tang is officially cleared as a suspect. He returns to Korea. One day, while Nangam is walking with his dog, he hears news of a murder victim who was suspected of abduction and murder. Meanwhile, Tang is walking down the street when someone bumps into him. His neck prickles as he turns around, sensing the familiar tension.